You walked into the room and you already knew something was wrong, not because anyone said anything, not because there were signs that most people would catch, but because your body told you, a tightening somewhere behind your sternum, a shift in the air, a frequency that landed in your nervous system before your conscious mind had time to translate it. You've been doing this your entire life. Reading rooms, reading people, knowing things you weren't told and feeling things that haven't happened yet. Catching the tension underneath the smile, sensing the shift in someone's energy 3 seconds before their face changes. And for most of your life, the world has had one explanation for this: your past, your pain, the things that happened to you that you were supposed to get over by now. They called it damage, they called it hypervigilance. They handed you the word trauma and said, this is why you are the way you are, as if the experiences that shaped you were only ever a wound, as if everything you became in response to them was just a symptom. But psychology tells a completely different story. What happened to you did not only wound you, it built you. It developed in you a set of cognitive and emotional capacities that most people will spend their entire lives never accessing because they were never required to. There are 5 rare psychological traits that define people who carry what you carry, and once you understand them, you will finally stop calling it damage. Trait 1. You developed a nervous system that reads the world at a level most people cannot access. It's a Sunday afternoon, you're at a gathering, the kind that looks ordinary from the outside. People talking, laughing, moving through the room. And while everyone else is tracking the surface, the conversation, the food, the plans, you're tracking something else entirely. The way that person's laugh is slightly too loud for what was actually funny. The silence that fell for half a second when a certain name came up. The way 2 people are standing just slightly too far apart. The way they used to stand close. You didn't decide to notice these things. You couldn't have not noticed them. Psychologists call this neuroceptive sensitivity, the nervous system's capacity to detect threat, safety, and emotional data in the environment at a subconscious level, below conscious awareness. In plain terms, your nervous system learned to scan, not because something is wrong with it, but because it was trained, across years of needing to know what was coming before it arrived, to process social and emotional information with extraordinary speed and depth. What most people call hypervigilance, psychology is beginning to understand as a form of advanced social intelligence, a finely tuned perceptual system that picks up data other nervous systems simply filter out. The cost is real. It is exhausting to be this attuned, this constantly, without a way to turn it off. But the gift is equally real. You see what is actually happening. Not the performance, not the surface, the truth underneath, and you see it faster and more accurately than almost anyone in the room. But there is a trait underneath this one that explains why you don't just read situations. You feel them in your body before you have words for them. Trait 2. You developed emotional intelligence that operates below the level of thought. Someone is struggling. They haven't said so. They are, in fact, saying the opposite, saying they're fine, saying everything is okay, saying it with a smile that almost convinces everyone else in the room. But you already know, not because you analyzed the situation, not because you noticed specific behavioral cues and drew a logical conclusion, but because something shifted in your body the moment you walked in, a weight, a tightening, a knowing that arrived before thought. Psychologists link this to what they call somatic emotional processing, the capacity to register emotional information as physical sensation, below the level of conscious analysis. In plain terms, your body learned to feel what other people feel before your mind has had time to catch up. The nervous system that spent years having to sense what was coming developed an extraordinary sensitivity to the emotional states of others, replicating them, absorbing them, reading them with a precision that bypasses logic entirely. This is the reason you have always known things about people that you couldn't explain. You didn't learn them, you felt them, and you were almost always right. The strength here is profound. You carry an emotional literacy that most people never develop, because most people were never asked to read a room at the level you were asked to read one. The shadow side is that you often cannot tell the difference between what you're feeling and what you have absorbed from someone else. You can arrive home carrying 10 people's emotional states in your body without knowing it happened. But if you think that's the most difficult part, the next trait is what makes it even more complex. Trait 3. You developed a mind that turns pain into pattern recognition. You have been here before. Not this exact situation, but this feeling, this dynamic, this particular way a relationship starts to shift before anyone has said a word about it shifting. And while most people are still deciding whether something is actually wrong, you already know. You have seen this before, you have felt this before, and your mind, because of everything it has processed, has built an internal library of patterns that most people simply don't have access to. Psychologists call this post-traumatic cognitive growth, the development of advanced pattern recognition, empathic accuracy, and predictive social intelligence as a result of navigating complex emotional environments over time. In plain terms, your mind turned what it survived into data. Every difficult experience, every relationship that required you to read between the lines, every moment where you had to understand something before it was explained, all of it became information. All of it became a map. You see patterns other people miss because you have been paying attention, at a level most people never have to pay attention. For longer than most people can imagine, this is not damage. This is intelligence, a specific, rare, earned form of intelligence that cannot be taught in a classroom and cannot be developed without the very experiences you wish you hadn't had. If this already feels uncomfortably accurate, if you want psychology that finally explains your mind instead of asking you to fix it, you're welcome to subscribe. This channel exists for people exactly like you. Trait 4. You developed a capacity for holding complexity that most people find unbearable. Most people need things to be simple. They need people to be good or bad, situations to be clear or confusing, relationships to make sense or not make sense. When things are complicated, when someone is both loving and hurtful, when a situation is both beautiful and painful, when the truth is somewhere in the middle of two things that seem to cancel each other out, most people reach for resolution. They simplify. They choose one side. You don't do that. You hold both. You always have. You can love someone and be angry at them at the same time, without needing to resolve the contradiction. You can understand why something happened without excusing it. You can hold grief and gratitude in the same hand without either one canceling the other out. Psychologists call this dialectical thinking, the cognitive capacity to hold two contradictory truths simultaneously without the need to resolve the tension between them. In people who have navigated complex emotional environments, this capacity develops not as a philosophical choice, but as a survival skill. When the world does not offer simple answers, the mind that survives it learns to live inside complexity and eventually to think more clearly within it than people who have only ever needed things to be simple. This is why you understand nuance that others dismiss, why you can see all sides of something when everyone else has already decided. Why people come to you with their most complicated problems, because you're one of the few people they know who will not rush to simplify them. But the next trait is the one that most people with your history never recognize in themselves, because it looks from the outside like something else entirely. Trait 5. You developed an extraordinary capacity for post-traumatic meaning-making. You're someone who needs things to mean something, not in a dramatic way, not in a way you always talk about, but quietly, persistently, you return to what happened to you. You sit with it, you turn it over. You look for the thread that connects it to who you are now, to what you understand now, to what you can offer now that you couldn't before. This is not rumination. This is not being stuck. Psychologists call this post-traumatic meaning-making, the cognitive and emotional process by which the mind integrates difficult experience into a coherent narrative of self, transforming what was survived into a source of understanding, purpose, and wisdom. In plain terms, you are someone who refuses to let what happened to you be meaningless. And that refusal, that insistence on finding the thread, on understanding the shape of things, on making something from what was broken, is one of the rarest and most powerful things a human mind can do. It is the reason you understand people the way you do, because you have done the work in the quiet of your own mind that most people never do. The work of actually sitting with difficulty, actually feeling it, actually integrating it into something you can carry forward. That is not a trauma response, that is wisdom, and it was built from everything you survived. So here is what all 5 of these traits, together, actually describe: a nervous system that learned to read the world at a level most people cannot access, an emotional intelligence that operates below thought, feeling what others feel before anyone has spoken, a mind that turned pain into pattern recognition, building a map from everything it survived, a capacity to hold complexity and contradiction without flinching, and a quiet, persistent drive to make meaning from difficulty, to refuse to let what happened be without purpose. None of that is damage. None of that is something to manage or medicate or apologize for. None of that is a trauma response dressed up as a personality. That is what it looks like when a human mind takes the hardest material it was given and builds something extraordinary from it. That is not a wound. That is intelligence, rare, earned, and entirely yours. You were never broken. You were built differently. Which trait hit closest to home? Drop a number in the comments, subscribe. You're in the right place.